Imagine being a single decision away from altering the course of history. This was the case with Adolf Hitler, a name that still sends chills down our spines. Born in a small town in Austria in 1889, Hitler was the fourth of 6 children. His father, Alois, was a stern man with a quick temper, while his mother, Clara, was a gentle soul who showered Adolf with affection. As a young boy, Hitler was bright, but he struggled to find a career path that truly resonated with him. He aspired to become a painter, a dream that his father strongly opposed. This conflict led to a strained relationship and further deepened Hitler's resentment towards authority. The real turning point in Hitler's life came with the outbreak of World War I. He enlisted in the German army and fought on the front lines. But the war was not a romantic adventure as he had imagined. It was a brutal, dehumanizing experience that deeply affected him. Witnessing the horrific realities of war firsthand, Hitler developed a burning resentment towards the forces that he believed were responsible for Germany's downfall. This included the Treaty of Versailles, which he viewed as a betrayal by the nation's leaders, and the rise of communism, which he saw as a threat to German identity. The seeds of his extremist views were sown during these grim years. In the aftermath of the war, Germany was a broken nation, suffering from economic hardship and political instability. Hitler found himself in a society disillusioned and desperate for change. He saw this as an opportunity to make his mark. He joined the German Workers' Party, the precursor to the Nazi Party, and began to shape it according to his own radical ideology. In this chaotic world, Hitler found his calling. He was no longer a lost young man searching for direction. He was a charismatic leader with a dangerous vision. His powerful speeches played on the fears and frustrations of the masses, gaining him a growing following. A disillusioned soldier, Hitler was about to step into a world of politics that would change the face of history. Hitler's rise to power wasn't overnight. It was a calculated strategic ascent that capitalized on the discontent of a nation. In the wake of World War I, Germany was a nation in turmoil. The economy was in shambles, the people were disillusioned, and the political landscape was unstable. It was in this environment that a young Adolf Hitler began to make his mark. Hitler was a man who knew how to seize an opportunity. As the country dealt with high unemployment rates and crippling inflation, he presented himself as the solution. He promised the German people jobs, prosperity, and most importantly, a return to national pride. These were offers that a desperate nation found hard to resist. His road to power, however, was not without its hurdles. Hitler's rise began in the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party, as it's more commonly known. Starting as an intelligence officer, he quickly climbed the ranks, becoming the party's leader in just a few short years. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. In 1923, Hitler and his Nazi Party attempted a coup d'etat known as the Beer Hall Putsch. The goal was to overthrow the German government, but the putsch was an utter failure. Hitler was arrested and sentenced to prison. What could have been the end was only the beginning. While in prison, Hitler penned Mein Kampf, a manifesto outlining his political ideologies and future plans for Germany. The book became a bestseller, further fueling his rise. Upon his release, Hitler returned to politics with renewed vigor. He continued to capitalize on the nation's economic crisis and political instability, rallying the masses with his charismatic speeches and promises of a better future. And so it was. A failed coup, a prison sentence, and a best-selling book later, Hitler had successfully navigated his way to the top. He was appointed Chancellor of Germany in 1933, marking the beginning of a dark chapter in world history. From the ashes of a failed coup, a dictator was born. From 1933 to 1945, Hitler held the world in a grip of fear and terror. An era marked by a chilling reign of brutality and oppression, Hitler's dictatorship was a period that witnessed the darkest chapters of human history. Hitler's policies were designed to establish absolute control over the German state. The Enabling Act of 1933 granted him the power to enact laws without the involvement of the Reichstag, effectively making him a legal dictator. This absolute power was used to implement policies that suppressed political opposition, restricted civil liberties, and promoted Hitler's vision of racial purity. The establishment of concentration camps was a key part of this reign of terror. These camps, initially set up to detain political enemies, soon became the sites of unimaginable horrors. millions of Jews, along with other groups deemed undesirable by the Nazi regime, were imprisoned, enslaved, and systematically exterminated in these camps. The names Auschwitz, Buchenwald, and Dachau stand as stark reminders of the inhumanity of this period. As Hitler's power grew, so did his ambition. The invasion of Poland in 1939 marked the beginning of World War II, a conflict that would engulf the entire globe. Hitler's aggressive expansionist policies led to the occupation of numerous countries, causing widespread devastation and loss of life. Through his regime, Hitler unleashed a wave of terror that would impact the world in profound ways. The atrocities committed during this period are beyond comprehension, with an estimated 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust alone. Hitler's reign of terror was a time of unprecedented cruelty and violence, leaving behind a world forever scarred by its memories. Every aspect of society, from politics to culture, was altered under Hitler's rule. People lived in constant fear, their freedoms curtailed, their lives dictated by the whims of a despot. The impact of this regime was felt not only in Germany but across the world, fundamentally changing the course of history. The world had never witnessed such a reign of terror, and it left a mark that is still visible today. The shadow of Hitler's rule still looms large, a chilling reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink when power is left unchecked. Every dictator's reign has an end, and Hitler's was no different. The tide of World War II began to turn in the Allies' favor with a pivotal event, the invasion of Normandy. This was not just a military invasion, it was the beginning of the end for Hitler and his dream of a 1,000-year Reich. June 6, 1944, better known as D-Day, saw the largest seaborne invasion in history. The Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy, breaking through Hitler's Atlantic Wall, a fortification built to repel an expected invasion. Despite fierce resistance, the Allies managed to establish a foothold on the continent, initiating a westward push that would eventually lead to the downfall of Nazi Germany. But it wasn't just external forces that were working against Hitler. Internally, he was a man in decline. His physical health was deteriorating rapidly, with symptoms such as trembling hands, irregular heartbeat, and severe gastrointestinal problems. These physical ailments were mirrored by a mental decline, with Hitler becoming increasingly unpredictable, erratic, and paranoid. His final days were spent in a bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery in Berlin. As the Red Army closed in, Hitler was confronted with the reality of defeat. On April 30, 1945, he made the decision to end his life. His body was later found by his aides alongside that of Eva Braun, his longtime companion who he had married just 2 days earlier. When the news of Hitler's death reached the outside world, it was met with a mixture of relief and disbelief. The man who had held the world in a grip of terror for over a decade was gone, but the scars of his reign wouldn't fade so easily. In the end, Hitler's reign of terror collapsed under its own weight. His vision of a 1,000-year Reich had lasted a mere 12 years, but the impact of those years would be felt for generations to come, a stark reminder of the destructive power of hate and the dangers of unchecked ambition. The world was forever altered by Hitler's reign. His legacy is one of destruction but also of lessons learned. The echoes of Hitler's actions resonate far beyond the confines of the Second World War. His reign of terror, punctuated by unimaginable atrocities, left an indelible mark on the world, shaping the future in ways that were both tragic and transformative. In the aftermath of the war, the international community was confronted with a harsh reality: the need for a collective response to prevent such atrocities from happening again. Out of this collective desire, the United Nations was born. This international body, established in 1945, was founded on principles of peace, human rights, and international cooperation. Hitler's reign also led to the creation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. This document, the first of its kind, outlined the fundamental human rights that should be protected worldwide. It was a direct response to the crimes against humanity perpetrated by Hitler and his regime. The lessons from this dark period in history are numerous. They remind us of the dangers of unchecked power, the devastating consequences of hatred, and the critical importance of safeguarding human rights. They underscore the necessity for international cooperation in the face of global threats. These lessons are not mere relics of the past. They continue to guide the world's response to contemporary issues, from conflicts and humanitarian crises to the protection of human rights. Hitler's legacy, while steeped in destruction, has also given rise to a global commitment to prevent the recurrence of such horrors. The world learned from Hitler's reign, and it continues to learn. It's a process, sometimes painful, often challenging, but always necessary. For it is through understanding our past, however grim, that we can navigate our future. Hitler's legacy is a stark reminder of the depths humanity can sink to, but also of our capacity to learn, change, and strive for a better world.